So, everybody see? Okay, my name's Dexter, and just going to tell you just briefly what I do. I don't communicate with animals, and I do healing work. And I never thought that I would do healing work, and it's a long story, but basically it was my cats who put me on that path. Started wanting to try and heal them because I wasn't getting a lot of results from the vets at the time. And you know, and over the years, you know, I started with Reiki, and then it just started, you know, increasing, and now I just sort of combine things, and it's all because of them. I do remote viewing, which I'm going to talk about tonight because it's fascinating. And let's see what else. I don't know. I guess that's pretty much it. But tonight I'm going to talk about what animal communication is, how it works, why it works. Most of you who have animals are already communicating with them, and you're all kind of on the same wavelength. But there are some people who are skeptics. I was one. I was a skeptic. I used to work at the Author Dexter Bookstore, and communicators came in all the time, and I would just roll my eyes, say, yeah, okay, you talk to animals. And it wasn't until I heard my animal out of the clear blue sky, before I was ever doing this work. I was walking through the house, and I wasn't paying attention, and I heard in my mind, look out, I'm down here. And I looked down, and it was Bubby, my cat, laid out by the entrance of the doorway, staring up at me. Clearly, he stopped me from trampling him. And then it happened again, but it was a vision that I had gotten an image, and he was trying to tell me something was wrong with him, and I didn't listen. And two days later, I had to rush him to the vet. And this kept happening, and then I thought, you know, I think I'm hearing my animals. And so I started to take some, well, I read a book, and I started practicing with them. And they're amazing because they're very cooperative. They're delighted when you can speak their language telepathically. They're delighted, and they're patient. It's almost like they know that we're struggling with it. And when I first started, it was kind of funny because I'd sit down, seriously, after I took some classes, I'd go home, and I had a notebook and a paper, and I'd sit down with my cat, and I'd start like, I was so tense and trying to ask questions and try to hear the answer, and my cats are just sort of laying there like, you know, thanks. So anyway, okay, so tonight, it works on two levels. The first level is that simply animals think in pictures. So they can see the thoughts in your mind. And that's why we're going to talk about this more later, because I'm going to be talking about behavior problems and how a lot of times animals are picking up your emotional imbalances. And they do it. They reflect it back to you. And unless you change, their behavior will not change. It will continue. So that's one thing that animals do for us as teachers. So they think in pictures, and they sense your energy and your intentions. And what I want to say first off is that we do the same thing. We all are psychic. We are clairvoyant, which means clear seeing, in that we receive information when we're talking to someone. We're always telepathing, by the way, when we're talking to someone, but we're just not aware of it because we're so used to our language in words. But we're watching a person's facial expressions as they speak, the expression in their eyes, their body language, and we're intuiting all this stuff as we're talking. So that's a form of clairvoyance. We also think in pictures, whether you realize it or not. And become aware, become aware of this more and more, because then you'll know what messages you're giving out to people, to others, and to your animals. If, for example, you decide to eat lunch, you're getting hungry, you want to eat lunch, you'll see what you're going to eat in your mind. You'll get that image in your mind of the sandwich or whatever it is. If you're going to a party, you'll see the outfit you're going to be wearing. You'll see it in your mind. Always, thoughts are always images. And when you start communicating with animals, you become more aware of those images because you're always receiving them. I'll give you one example. One time, and this, if you think back in your household with your animal companions, you know that this has happened to you too. One time I was taking care of a German Shepherd, and I was in the yard and I was painting, and I was just focused in my work. And all of a sudden I heard in my mind, "Take Senda for a walk." Just, her name was Senda. And I looked up, and there was Senda sitting by the gate, looking at me, just, you know, looking how dogs are just locked into you. And she's smiling, you know, and all happy. And I thought, wow, you know, she was telling me she wanted to go for a walk. And I heard it in my mind. And so you'll notice this at home when all of a sudden you think, oh, I'd better feed him. And there he is waiting by his bowl. You know, he's telling you, I'm hungry. So, okay, so images, clairvoyance, clairaudience. We hear things. You're driving down the road, and a little voice says, "Turn left," and you don't listen, and you turn right, and there's a big traffic jam or something. You know, your intuition's always talking to you, your inner voice. We don't always listen. It took me years to really trust it, but that's a really good example of clairaudience. We also hear people. We hear what they're not saying. You know, they tell you one thing, but we can almost like read their minds sometimes. You know something else is going on in their life. So clairaudience, clairsentience, feeling. Animals are natural empaths. They just absorb your emotions. We feel another person's pain. We feel their pride. We feel their arrogance. We feel their energy. You know immediately if you trust someone. You know their intentions. All of this stuff is happening all the time. The last one is claircognizance, clear knowing. It's just when you know. You know, you don't know how you know, but you know. And this happens all the time to all of us. And sometimes you might even know, like if the phone's going to ring and and the phone rings, and you know it's a certain person at the other end of the line. So all of these ways are present all the time in our natural conversation with one another. And so when you think about animal communication, this is what it is. It's a matter of developing these abilities that you already have. And this is what I'm teaching a workshop in 2 weeks, if you're interested, not to be an animal communicator, but just to enhance your relationship with your own animals, or just to open up your world. I mean, it really, you start looking at the world differently. So I wanted to say a little example. Are you all familiar with the scientist Rupert Sheldrake?